Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube segment, I'm going to be talking about what if there was no internet. And many of us can pontificate and speculate on this, and we all have varied answers on this. A lot of us have similar thoughts on this, but maybe not precisely the same ones. Well, the obvious thing for me anyway, at least it would impact me dramatically because for my NFL prediction videos, I research a lot of my stats online, and it certainly facilitates the process of making these prediction videos. And even for some of the other videos I do, I have to wind up researching information for that as well from time to time. So it really makes it could really make things a lot difficult, and the internet helps facilitate things in so many different ways for us. And with me, a lot of my communication is online, and one of the things I'm really enamored with is producing YouTube videos. And if I didn't have the internet, I wouldn't be able to do that. The YouTube videos are one of the things in my life that keep me going. A friend of mine recently had stated when the internet was out temporarily that I looked like I panicked a little bit, that he saw panic in my eyes when the internet was out. And the thing about it is, the internet going out would actually, if we didn't have any more internet in the world, it would actually put me in a state of trepidation. And I'm not exaggerating or distorting things. This would really put me in a state where I would be absolutely petrified, because I think what's happened over the years, I've gotten so accustomed to having the internet, and it really is it's helped me communicate with others more. I'm a very introverted person. I don't really go out a whole lot, and if I went, well, the positive side in this whole thing, if I wound up, say, if the internet did go out and we never had internet anymore, well, on one positive side, it would force a lot of us that maybe don't do this that often to have more in-person communications with others. A lot of that has almost become obsolete, I think, for some people. We'd have more conversations on the phone. And I understand Skype is around and you have a face-to-face communication with Skype, but I still don't see it as really being the same thing as talking to someone that's physically right there in front of you. But there are some other positives, though, connected. Well, let's say hypothetically, if we didn't have the internet anymore, you notice how people, a lot of times, these advertisers and companies get our emails somehow, whether it's sold from social media sites or whatever, and they wind up sending us things that are connected with, a lot of times, with our interests and how they find that out. There was something interesting I had heard, I don't know if this is still true or not, but something to the effect where Facebook, they claim they don't read or scan our actual Facebook messages we send we exchange with others, but what it is they still have a memorization, or they have a record of the characters we type, and I may not be saying that 100% true, but if that is, that would be essentially, I don't know if 100% if that's true or not, or if I heard this right, but what I mean is, if that is veracious and that is true, then that would be essentially the same thing as really having our messages read. And a lot of that I think, could be used for advertising, selling information maybe about us, say, to advertisers, and saying from face. So I think when I look at that, that's kind of like, it feels like a privacy invasion in a way. But like I said, I don't know if that's true. That's something whoever sees this would, if you don't already know about this, would look into that. But if that is true, I would feel a little uncomfortable with that, and it makes us have to be more prudent, more careful in terms of what we're typing, and what we're, as far as messages to others on Facebook. But the thing about it is, that the internet, I mean, you have all the cyber crime going on and people impersonating others, and you also have the cyber bullying. So it's not like it would be all negative if the internet ended. However, I would be very devastated if the internet ever did come to an end, because it's something I'm enthralled with. It's something that keeps me going. I don't know what I would do to occupy myself during, if the internet had ever completely disappeared. It's just something where I've actually had been able to not meet physically, but many of the people, I've been able to befriend, say on Facebook or Twitter. From my YouTube videos, people have reached out to me, and I've formed online friendships with a number of people that have seen me in my YouTube videos. So it's really become something for me where it's really my main, mainly my main social recreation, so to speak, because I honestly do not have many friends in my particular neck of the woods. I don't drive. It's hard for me to get around places. So for those reasons, the internet has become something that's very positive for me. And there's a lot of things on there that are very enjoyable. There's videos I watch. There's a lot of websites I like to go on. And as I stated, making the videos is really, the internet's really become like my lifeline. I don't really have an overabundance of interest outside of the internet. It would be interesting though. Imagine trying to research things without the internet. I can remember back in what I call the prehensile days, back in the 80s, when I would have to go research things in library books and the microfilm. And what would happen now if we didn't have the internet? We'd probably have to do something similar. We'd have to go old school. We'd go to books, research material. We'd go to old magazines, archives. We could go to the microfilm. But I mean, it would just be very difficult in order to do so. Imagine, I mean, you have like astrology charts, for example. Okay, you could calculate them online. What would we do? I think the thing though is, if the internet was gone, I'm sure you would still have computer software for certain computers where you can put that program in and calculate the charts. But even so, there are certain things like on the internet that make things a lot easier, and we just wouldn't have that anymore. And the thing about it too is, I mean, if somebody has, say, a business, putting it online could help them stimulate more business. It's another outlet for others. They wouldn't have that available anymore if the internet was gone. They would just have to go advertise in magazines, and really there wouldn't be much magazines, newspapers, but there would be no more of the online advertising, because you simply would not have that anymore. And you could see businesses sales diminishing, perhaps because of that. People would be forced to do more television advertising. And sometimes when you could advertise online, you could put, like, if you make a Facebook page, for example, you could essentially advertise your business free of charge. You just make a page dedicated to your business, and you could even put a link on your own, say, your own Facebook profile. So I mean, really, right on your timeline. So people would be forced to wind up spending more money in conjunction with their business. That's another thing that would happen if the internet went out. So and to me, I mean, let's say you want to archive an old article, say an old sports article. I believe Sports Illustrated has a lot of old sports articles from past magazines online. But the thing is, let's say the internet was down. You didn't have the internet anymore. Well, no, you wouldn't be able to do that. Well, then what are you going to do? You're going to have to call, say in that example, call Sports Illustrated up, see if you can get a copy of that old magazine. How long is it going to take for you to receive it? And where in reality you would be able to see that online in maybe under a minute in a lot of cases. So depending on how long it takes you to find it. Now, the thing too is, it just generally speaking, without the internet, it would just become so incredibly difficult just to find things. Even if you wanted to reconnect with somebody. Let's give another hypothetical example. Let's say you're trying to find a relative that had been missing for some time in your life, and you wanted to reach out. You wanted to rekindle an old relationship with him or her. Well, you could you could Google the name. If you have the internet, you can go to whitepages.com would be another example. Go on Facebook, punch in the name, what have you. Well, if you don't have the internet, then what happens? Then what are you going to do? You're going to go on the phone, call up the operator in various states. What if it's a very common name? How long is it going to take you to possibly find that? It could take much persistent effort, but probably a lot less when you're online. Imagine how the things that we've gotten so accustomed to that we almost take for granted, if that was obliterated, imagine how difficult things could be. Now, don't get me wrong. Back in the 80s and beforehand, I mean, we found people that lived in that period, I should say, like myself. We found a way to manage. I stated before, the microfilm, researching things in books, magazines, encyclopedias, what have you. We could still find the information, but it would be so much more painstaking and time consuming to do so. And I think as society collectively, we have taken this internet so much for granted that who knows what would happen if we didn't have it. You'd have a lot of people would be very angry, to say the least, very acrimonious. I think at some point people would come to the realization of what happened, and they would be forced to accept it. But you'd have a lot more bored people out there, I think, but at the same time you'd have that little bit more personal connection that perhaps you didn't have as much while the internet existed. So there are some good points and there are some bad points as far as not having the internet. And another thing I thought of too just now when I'm talking about this, let's say we go to something else. We go to, well, we'd probably be watching cable a little bit more often. Say if we want to get our weather forecast, we could go on to the Weather Channel or whatever it is, and if you're in a different country than the United States, you might be watching something else, but whatever that weather station is in your area or channel. The thing though is, the internet would give you ability to look at something more specifically in conjunction with the weather a lot sooner. Now, let's say you wanted a 10-day forecast. You can go to weather.com and you could pull it up depending on your internet speed, within minutes. But if you were to go on to the Weather Channel, you might have to wait till it actually shows up there. And who knows how long that could be. Sometimes when you go on the Weather Channel, as many of you may know, what they'll be doing is they'll talking about a storm story or something, and you might have to wait on that. If you're looking for like a 10 or 5-day forecast, you might have to wait for a little bit until they show something on the bottom of the screen, or maybe, and it could be possible in some cases, until the show ends. So anyway, those are some things to look at as far as if the internet, if we did not have the internet, some of the things that could happen to us. So anyway, people, I mean, that's pretty much it for What if we didn't have the internet? And this is Edwin Learnard, and until next time, people, stay well.